Okay, we got Wayne Semaganis. Another season has come upon us, Wayne. Time seems to be flying. But spring is here, and when we were talking last, we were looking at the relationship of the Crown and the treaty signatories and the promises that were made. But creating a country through international treaty, Canada has certainly a lot of growing to do just yet. And since we last spoke, the Saskatchewan First Act was brought into the province, and the Sovereignty Act into Alberta. But also at the international level, the doctrine of discovery has now been revoked or repealed. So, what's been on your mind, and what would you like to say this time around there?
Yeah, thank you. Naskom ne pe vitam ya pe pento tau ya tansu te speaks ke chik ne team na nang stay go man mam skutami. Thank you for traveling to North Balford to come and do this talk. And there are a lot of things, First Nations people, where we've been negligent, I guess, and not enough presence. Our voice and our place at that table is vacant, and it's silent, and it's not good for anybody. It's not good for us, and it's not good for our treaty partner, because it needs constant reminder, it needs constant attention that this is what defines our relation. This is the grounding that we need between First Nations people and the Crown. We just went through a coronation. King Charles and the Queen had a coronation, and there was very little attendance by treaty people there. There was no official attendance, and that's a great neglect. A neglect by the Crown in England to not make space for us, to not accommodate us, because we are the only people in the world that have a treaty with Great Britain. The United States doesn't, Canada doesn't. Canada is trying to distance itself from the Crown. So there's a lot of legal issues that are at play here. And it's disappointing to me that our First Nations leadership are not pushing to have that agenda addressed. It's a neglect, and we need to straighten out on that. I listened to the Church of England, the Archbishop of Canterbury, when he was presenting all the regalia that comes with being the king: the orb, the rod, the scepter, the ring, the glove, the robes, the crown. All those things were given to him by the Archbishop, and there were spiritual reminders of what is expected of the king, that these are not his just because he's the king, but that the responsibilities. And those are the same things that our elders talked to us. When I was given my headdress, when I became chief, I remember our old chief, Victor Chicosis. He told me when I became chief, don't go and buy a headdress. Headdresses are not bought. And I never did buy a headdress. And I remember there was a powwow at Sagio High School, and the elders back then, old Sundance people, they said, come in the morning, we're going to do a ceremony. I thought we were doing a pipe ceremony. I said, yes, I'll be there. So, because they're my uncles, of course I'm going to be there. And to be a part of a ceremony at any time in Indian country, I believe leaders should be there to participate, to set an example, to hold our inherent and treaty rights up as our leading cause. So I went there, and I was very surprised that they were giving me a headdress. But there's a whole ceremony to that, the prayers that go with it. And they talked to me about the responsibilities that come with wearing a headdress and what is expected of me. And it very much matches what King Charles was being told. So I wish, because I look at where we are now as chiefs, when I look at the FSIN assembly and group pictures, so many chiefs are wearing headdresses. Sometimes I wonder how many of them got those through a ceremony. And how many of them know the significance of what it means to put on that headdress? So and I wish, I actually got up at 4 a.m. to watch the coronation, because I wanted to see who was there on behalf of our people as official representatives. Because truly, when we signed treaty with Queen Victoria and her representatives, we signed as equals. We didn't sign as British subjects. We didn't sign as Canadians. And I had wished that I had seen our leaders over there, our chiefs, not AFN chiefs, not FSIN chiefs, our band chiefs, the ones that actually signed treaty, to acknowledge that relationship and to bring it front and center. Because right now, we are, the greatest worry of a lot of our spiritual elders is the way Canada is describing the relationship, that we fall under their constitution, that we fall even below the cities, that we're a fourth level of government. And we need to get back to that understanding, that treaty, we're not below anybody. That you see Canada today, a lot of talk about why is there a need to be a part of the monarchy, that we should get rid of the king, get rid of the queen. Back then was Queen Elizabeth, but now that she's passed away, King Charles. There's a lot of talk, there are a lot of articles, there are a lot of columns being written that we should do away with our relationship with the crown. And even Canada, the people in Canada themselves don't understand, why is there a relationship? It's not theirs to decide, it's us. And we signed treaties to be neighbors, partners with the crown forever. So as Indian people, we cannot walk away from that, or else we're breaking a sacred promise that we made to the Creator. So there's a lot of things that we need to look at here, but also at the same time, there's a great lack of unity in Indian country to address these issues. There's a great lack of a loss of knowledge as to why we even need to be there. There are so many chiefs and counselors nowadays that are young, that were raised and educated in provincial schools, provincial curriculum. They have no treaty knowledge because they never grew up with their elders either. So it's a big challenge, but nevertheless, it's a responsibility. As sacred as the king's responsibility to be a leader of his people, that's the same sacred responsibility we have as Indian chiefs to our people. So there are a lot of things that are very, it worries me. I have a hard time sleeping because there's so many things to think about, and who is addressing these things on behalf of all our people? Because we're just getting dragged along with Canada's perception of the relationship with the crown, because we are now deemed as Canadians. I remember when I was chief and we went to London to go and visit the Queen, and we needed Canada's permission to visit the royal family. And we didn't know it at that time, that we were wondering, why can't we go? And we were waiting. There was a group of us chiefs waiting there, and spiritual elders at that time were with us. And we never did get to see the royal family. And we found out later, and it's documented, it was being filmed, the trip at that time, and we were told that it was the Canadian government that would not give permission for the chiefs of Saskatchewan to go and see the royal family, to see the Queen. So when you have that kind of a structure, how can we trust the Canadian government? You know, they always tell us you're protected under the Constitution, Section 35. For me, it's a very meaningless, and it's, I haven't seen much protection. I haven't seen any implementation of treaty rights under Section 35. These are the word games that go on all the time, and it's said so often that people start to believe it to be true. Well, you know, when I look at where we are today, how pitiful we are, how we struggle, if this is the protection that we're getting, it's not right. And it's time for leaders to say it's not right, because Who else has that responsibility? Not Canada. We didn't sign treaty to become Canadians. We signed treaties as sovereign states, sovereign bands, sovereign leaders. And when you look at Canada today, I read the news a lot, and Canada is having meetings in Ottawa talking about China's interference in their elections. If you look at our elections on our reserves, they are Indian Act elections. That's interference. That's not our way, traditional way of selecting our leaders. This is Canada's interference in our elections to weaken our governance system, to break us away from the spiritual way that we lived and the way we ruled. It really, many times as I sit there and I read the news and I listen to the news, I am so mad at Canada's hypocrisy. And again, it always comes back to, where's our leaders to say these things? Where's our leaders to put this on the table to get it dealt with? So that we have a voice at the table, but it's our voice. It's not Canada deciding things for us, saying things for us, managing things for us. Kia no ganiga nistamaswa kagiwe to tamakan sigo tawin do gispaktin go ta kaistipe chige tanse sinstaway to tanse siniga nistamo taisinim do. We don't have that anymore. No. And I look at the news, and Canada is lobbying the United Nations to go and sit on the Human Rights Commission. Well, if you look at Canada, to go over there to complain about China, to go over there and complain about Syria and other peoples that are oppressing their minorities, to go over there and chastise the rest of the world, when you look at how they treat us, how we live today under Canada's so-called rule, again, the hypocrisy is just astounding that Canada would think that they can go and teach humanity to the rest of the world. Look at us, loss of language, loss of traditional leadership, loss of spirituality, loss of land, loss of children, missing and murdered Indigenous women and children, everything that we've gone through. Is this what Canada looks at as being a part of having any understanding of human rights? They can't even clean up their own backyard with a neighbor that agreed to share everything with them, and they want to go and tell the rest of the world how they should behave. Maybe us as Indian people should be going to the United Nations and telling the truth of how Canada really is, because we certainly do have a lot to tell. But again, these things are happening and there's no First Nations voice there. You know, why are we allowing this? Where are our leaders? It's becoming more and more apparent that our greatest weakness right now is our leadership. Because right now, there are a lot of ceremonies. We're getting ready for the Sundance Lodges. We're doing other ceremonies that come with the season. And I've been to quite a few of them, and there are no leaders at any of our ceremonies. Where do they get their strength? Where do they get their wisdom? Where do they get that vision to make the future better? Because certainly, presently, we're not living in a good way. Our past is not good. So what do we have to hope for if that's the example we're going to continue to follow, is the card that we've been dealt by the Canadian government? When are we as leaders going to get together and really do something for all our people and for our treaty partner, the Canadian people, because their government is misleading them just like they're misleading us. So who's going to make it right? Again, I'm not here to find fault. I'm here to bring reminder that leadership is so important, but it's more than having a headdress. It's more than cashing a paycheck. It's more than getting per diem to travel to meetings, to have nice rooms, to enjoy good meals. There is great real responsibility there. to our people and to the Creator. And I'm hoping that leaders come forward to do the job right on behalf of all people. The other thing that I still am, I still worry about is internally. Yeah, no, tansi is wagutua. When you talk about kigitim no relationship wagutua and sacred, kutawi no gimigwa kwa kumagandok chasim sino kusim no git sanok. The Creator gave us our relatives, our mother, father, our grandfathers, grandmothers, brother and sister, grandchildren, everybody, every relation we have, it's sacred. Now we have Métis, the Métis. They're our relatives, and we cannot ever deny that. Why is that relationship not sacred to us? I truly believe that Indian and Métis need to get together and become one. Because I have legal documents that say from the Canadian government that acknowledge that Métis have the same treaty rights as the Treaty Indian. So why aren't we not talking like that? Because when we look at Saskatchewan, then we say, oh, we're all treaty people. Well, how can we say that with Saskatchewan people and not say that with our Métis relatives? We cannot be halfway on anything. And I would very much be so happy to see the day when Indian and Métis are one. Why push each other away? Get past the politics. We've been to Mogawanam, Utate to win. Kasasak si Taisino, Moya Patigo. Notskakyo, Kamyoganobntua. Again, there's some hypocrisy there, and we too, we have to overcome a lot of our hypocrisies. Because it's really getting to be a struggle. I see in Ontario where First Nations bands are challenging the Métis right to self-governance. You know, we should be happy. It's all one step for all of us. It's not just a step forward for the Métis. I see our Sioux relatives in Whitecap sign a self-governance deal, and I'm happy for them. You know, because for a long time, Chief Darcy Bear and his people, when they came here, they didn't sign treaty. But I am glad that they're finding their place and we can accommodate them and be happy for them. If we can do that there, why aren't we doing it for our Métis relatives? You know, we have a term in Cree for the Métis, and I pledged not to use it anymore because it's discriminatory. It's not a good word. So there are many things that we need to work at. There are many things that we need to pray for. But we need elders. We're running out of elders, true elders, that are spiritual, that are kind, that are accommodating, that are inclusive, and that are not political. Because life is such a struggle now. I see so many of our elders being used for pipe ceremonies, being used to say prayers. And then when the event is done or the moment is done, they're pushed to the side, no acknowledgement. Is this how we treat our spiritual people? No, it's not. There was never a time when I was growing up on my reserve, the elders were always at the front, especially the spiritual ones. And we all followed their example and we all followed their teachings. Nobody was lost because we always had that guidance. Today we're very lost because we don't have that guidance. We have big meetings and the pipes are invisible. We put them aside, we go and do it elsewhere, like they don't belong there. That is very wrong. Our elders, they don't give the guidance. It's the politician that gives the guidance. And the politician is directed by cash. Sunyao. We've heard it many times. Sunyao, guitasoy guao. Guipigun guao. And I think that's where we're very much at right now. So I am very lucky to be able to have ceremonial elders that are very honest in how they talk and very honest in how they pray. And that door is not open just for me. That door is open for anybody at any time. And I wish more of our people would come back. I was asked to go to Prince Albert to talk to students that are taking land training, land activities. There was about 40 students. And I asked when I got up to speak after I'd done the pipe ceremony, I asked them how many spoke Cree, how many spoke a mother tongue. There was only 2 out of 40 students, 40 First Nations kids. There were 2 non-Indian kids there too. But to see such a huge percentage, ewanita tiko piksko noao. Kami na muichi kita kik pakwata kik tigaya chik magi goi piksko nea chik magi goi gagi simo nea chik six chik muik skita kik tante gagi tute chik tante gagi toks no magus chik tante gagi nachnege chik gagi smona ego pe wansinya kami na michet paksimo chik magi go ai muta mi maya pachita te gagi simon imito agata gustamok ntonik 1 semana okso squats kia no mapogagi weta ha cho sim sino kwa ko magan no moi mun yao gagi gi weta go no pe go ako cho sim sino moi ne hio ga no tska gi sga gi skite nom stay dan se pe spigun gatik mage go poka puna ta me maao ya ga sino kia no poka kapasigona mo ya gi pasagona mago no. So there's a lot of there's so much work to be done, but we can do it. We just have to make it a priority. Our spirituality, our language, our rights, everything is going to come from there. Where we are now, we're being misled. We're just brown white men. We're hoping that we can be Indians. And it frustrates me a lot of times because when I go and talk, there are some people there that are so colonized they cannot see the error of their position. Some of them have told me my choice is to pray through the church, through the Bible. Nobody can force me to pray like an Indian. And I agree with that. But really, is it your choice? Where did you learn the Bible? Those people, those old people that hang on to the Bible today, they didn't have a choice. They were told you pray like this or else. They got beatings in school. That's not even a choice. So how can you say that? And then when we ask, myself as a grandparent now, with kids and grandchildren, I would like to see our children learn our way first. And then if they want to go another way, well, then truly that is their choice. Then they have options. But so many of our people today that waited and cried when they saw the Pope, the religion they have now, they didn't choose that. It was forced upon them. And the brainwashing is so severe that they do not even see how wrong that is. While I am glad that they have found some way to bring a spiritual belief in God into their life, the way they got there is so wrong. That's not even a real choice, and they can't even see that. So there's a lot of learning that has to be done, but who is going to start it? When I see all our youth at those learning institutions and this is a SIIT, our own First Nations learning institutions, and we're teaching white curriculum. Now we're just brainwashing ourselves. When are we going to make things right? I have a lot of discussions with old people, and even within my family, with my wife and our two boys. They ask a lot of questions, and they're starting to understand more and more, because this is the way I've talked, because this is the way I was raised. This is the way I led. So I need to stay that way, because if I don't, the people that talk like this, like our relative Eric Tatusis and the other elders, they're getting old. I'm 65, and they're not much older than me, but there's so much sickness. It is a real threat. If we went to an FSIN assembly today and we asked the leaders, how many of you talk Cree? How many of you talk your mother language? I know when I first joined, there was a lot. But I also know now, when I left here 2 years ago as a chief, there are very few, maybe a third at that time. And this is 2 years later. I'm pretty sure there are a lot less that speak their mother tongue. So I do have a lot of worries. Our elders have a lot of worries. But those children that are going to our schools, they too worry, because they know there's something missing. But there's nobody setting it up for them so that they can attain what they know is missing. There is no safe place for them to go and learn those things. So there's a lot that we need to work on in a united way. And that is what worries me, the lack of unity. Magi goy ma maupun, magi goy ma mo mam tani chigeon, magi goy piek piks kon kapn sami, ka kyogi goy is swept to go ya. We're scattered. We don't even have a driving focus anymore. Magi goy giniga nastaya ite taku taigo ya migo wansindia. We're lost, and we still have time to go back and find the right trail. But leadership, we need leadership. And I asked them at that time, for the Prime Minister to come here to say, I'm sorry for putting Chief Palmaker in jail, what did you have to agree to for him to come here? Because those treaty rights that were impacted are not just Chief Palmaker's, and they're not just yours, they're all of ours. Treaty 6. I said, make sure that you don't do anything that takes away our common treaty rights. I said, because wapa kita ko paige, kisa witamago ko mita tai kis waska wit, kiwa meskuchimaga. When tomorrow comes and he's apologized, what will change? And we see, since Palmaker apologized on Palmaker Hill, Trudeau apologized, nothing has changed. And they were so impressed when he could say 4 Cree words. Well, why are you so impressed that another human can say 4 Cree words? Parrots can imitate humans. Doesn't mean that it means something. And that's what I truly believe, because in spite of all the promises and all the words that have been exchanged, nothing has changed. And that's a real statement. That's a fair statement. I'm not being a negative person. I'm just being very realistic. Yes. So when are we ever really going to get to the point where we're going to really try and live together? I know a lot of times people don't want to change until they're facing life and death. That's when a person changes. Are we going to wait until Mother Earth is just about dead in Pahaya, Pstipohaya, before we try and find a real way of living with each other in a good way that ensures other life exists? Or are we going to continue to make money off of everything until everything's so polluted that nothing matters? That's what I'm afraid of. Until they're on their deathbed. That's the reality. That's human nature. It was never like that us. Before the white man got here, no animals went extinct. No people went extinct. But we know there's a race in Newfoundland that went extinct because of the white man's arrival. Many animals, the buffalo just about went extinct. They used those natural gifts, those life forms, to find a way to push us to a corner. That's how how evil the intentions were. Sorry is going to fix that. I see a lot of bands now getting ready for cows and plows. I was a chief. I worked on those things. I pushed hard for those battles in court. I argued with the lawyers as to how you determine what is worth what. Now there's a lot of bands that are getting ready to hand that money out. And you know what? They're having band meetings. And they're saying only our band members can come to those meetings. I can't go to my wife's band, Birch Narrows. They had meetings last night in Saskatoon. But they said only band members can come there. Why can't I go there? These are now my relatives, right? I have knowledge of these things. How come white consultants, white lawyers can come there and try and give guidance on cows and plows to my wife's band member, my wife's relatives, and I can't? I was going to go there for free and share my knowledge for free, but it wasn't allowed. So there's a lot of things that are we've been misled, but again, no. Why wait for Munyao Kagoyas Costamagua? We have that ability, we have that right to correct ourselves, to correct our path. We can't keep blaming. So there's many issues, and that's the biggest problem, is when are we ever going to get together and address all these issues? Oh, we're too busy. Forest fires happening everywhere. Oh, there's a lot of help needed, right? But during all those forest fires, how many First Nations were having quad rallies while reserves were burning? Somebody else's responsibility. See how we've lost our vision, how we've lost that sharing and caring. Don't worry, they're looked after. How do you know? Yeah, I saw that, all you got to do is look at Facebook. This is where this chief is at, this is where the council is at, and things are happening, right? There's a lot of responsibility and we're neglecting it. That's our bottom line right now.
The Garden of Eden. There was a curse put on those people, on that tribe. Das gut a ski dat open tunacho. Ogie no mak taskim no tigi pinatsagati. But time how no we packed them out to they want a doctrine of discovery. Tapi kumutamago ya tutmatsum no tagatiska go ya. Given permission in me, their souls are saved. You want me go we got see nachwa. So we told me try to what the mamon to a skamachtan so this mama week dog. Tarage seen a bit of a pit store. Mak taskim nachi piwik to. Muitagatiska weako. Quapatin music dan pictina mutamen. Maga I put away a crisis that's going to indie way schunigo no. But Tantituht sabahti, muikpattihtiin pagakamamuutaksisa.
Kokonamam doctrine of discovery. Kispentata poesino emihat. How can you be? Tansigagi muy goes ignopata mangis kitapatitan kagi simuanawe kaktibat. Kakyo ay sino pugita wasagama ski. Every race was given that messenger from the Creator. Kya no we sake chak. We all there, Jesus, Buddha, Allah. Kakyo, every race has awinan ekta mamotawe magimigo chik kautin stawita chik. Kagi simwan mstay kyapete ma patita. But that's not even Gagi Simwan, it's that person, that interpretation. It's not that religion that's bad, it's that individual. Tansay tapatitat. Kagagi Simwa amana, kapinataw hutay sino. It's not our way or no way. Mitete peaks tay sino okte penat en pento takanatawigos at maskikia pentatamat. And I've heard the grandfathers say, we'll pray for you as best as we can. Kanatawit nan. Kutawin o gagis mustamanan, kagagis mustamanan kutawin o to tatanan. We'll give you medicine, they tell us, Indian medicine. But I've heard them also say, the white doctor is giving you a medicine, and they'll describe it. They say, keep taking that medicine's helping you. So our spirituality, it's not our way or no way. It's very inclusive, very accommodating. Mawi gatoin bao. Munanto tansi skagismut tepia gagismut. So that's why, yes, when I was young, my late grandfather used to take me to the Anglican church. We all went. My grandmother and my brother and sisters, we all went. We all dressed up in nice little white shirts and little string ties. But at the same time, gitutaygaw kampaguismo, itekagismo. We were a part of that too. But as I grew older, I went to our way because it's more inclusive. Mawe kitatloimik. Mugi ganoabong tansi sihuin, kiwa pamihat. Tansis iswayutsin. Nobody looks at that when you're sitting in the sweat lodge agagi simuin. Kakyo egagi smustamato. Kakyo ektamaginato. Emamo gamato. That's what we need. So that doctrine of discovery, it's wrong that it was used for political purposes back then. And as long as they had that ability, but today, where the whole world is, international law applies. But still, like I said, after he repudiated it, the Pope, why is it still a basis for so many of the laws in North America? If the Pope can say it was misused and misinterpreted and it was wrong, why is it continued to be used in the courts of Canada and the United States? It frustrates me. Yam gaito it muy se tu tamani mita ten a tipo ko pego ne tai so waskawit. Kia no go pogani hiuya. Kia pete gana te xewa ta ke gagi smundo. Kia no pogagi smustamoa gagi smustamasoa gagi smustamoa na ga patakskit. Kakwe miono kakwe mutet. And I believe that's our role. There's so many predictions that we've heard in our ceremonies that Mother Earth is going to start cleansing itself. And how does it cleanse itself with floods, tornadoes, earthquakes, fires. Aren't we seeing all those things now? Pugite iskipik, pugite mamsiutik, pugite pastik, igogana nampai kigao inoski. These were things that were predicted. Why are we denying? Those are real signs. You know, when I first started this path, and I was doing things the right way, I went to a ceremony and the grandfather said they were going to give me a gift. And I asked them what this gift was. They said they were going to give me the cancer medicine. And they asked me what I thought of that. And I said, let me think about it during the ceremony, and at the end I'll ask. So when the ceremony was over and I asked them, I said, well, there's two things I need to ask. I said, this medicine has always been from the healer side of the family through the women. I said, I'm not a woman, and it's always been in that family. I'm not from that family. Why are you giving me this medicine? They told me that in the future, it's going to be of great benefit to the people. They didn't say the Indian people. They said the people. We were told back then that there's going to be all kinds of cancers coming up. Cancer is really going to spread. And when I look at the medical news all around the world, we see that now. So there are cures out there and there is hope. But it's us. It's us as people, how we live, how we employ the gifts we're given, how we put them to use. You know, those are the things. I asked a long time ago, my uncle told me, he said, you're going to have to find somebody that you can trust to take you on this spiritual path, a good person. I asked, how do you know who a good person is? He told me, you will find somebody iktimaksit, somebody that's poor. And he told me, not poor because they're not good money managers, but poor because they're iksewatsitsik, because they're generous. He said, you will find a healer that does ceremonies, but whatever he gets at that ceremony in payment for the healing and the prayers, he gives to his helpers, he gives to the pipe man, he gives to the singers, he gives to the cooks, he gives to the people that build a lodge for him, he gives to the people that bring the rocks and the wood for the fire. That's what I mean by poor, that he's not making himself rich, but everybody that helps in that spiritual day, that ceremony that day, they're acknowledged for their helping set up everything. That's the kind of generosity that he was talking about. So I did find such a person, and I'm very glad. But that person is as human as you and I, you know, with human faults. Because people also chastise me for saying, oh, why do you see that man? He's got faults, he's got problems. He's human. So I know where God is. It's not on earth. So again, we have to quit being so critical of each other. You know, work with each other. I've learned a lot. And like I said, I'm very lucky. I've had a lot of very good elders. But as we move ahead, where are our children going to find elders like that? When we're being taught to go on this path, not on the path the Creator put us on. So I worry a lot because I know what's being lost. And we need to hold on to it.